Hello, I'm Dr. Waples from Restor Medical Spa, and welcome to part 3 of our 4-part series on the aging process. Just to quickly recap what we talked about in the first 2 segments, the aging process is not one monolithic thing. It's not one thing that's happening. It's a combination of 4 separate processes that are going on in every person all the time. And those processes are dynamic wrinkling, which is wrinkling that's caused by muscular contraction, which really causes lines up across the brow and the upper face, around the corners of the eyes, but generally upper face, from the cheekbones up. Loss of volume, which is what causes creasing around the nose and mouth, hollowing underneath the eyes, happens from the cheekbones down. And then the third part of the aging process is intrinsic skin aging, which of course is what we're going to talk about today. And then the 4th part is skin laxity, just the effects that gravity has on skin, and we'll talk about that in our 4th segment. But today we're going to talk about intrinsic skin aging. So before we talk about skin aging, I think it's important to talk just a little bit about what skin looks like normally, how it acts, what it's supposed to do, what it's supposed to look like, and then we'll talk about all the changes that start to accumulate as we get older. So skin has layers, and I think that everyone kind of has that idea already. The top layer of the skin is your epidermis. Your epidermis is layers of dead cells. Its only job is to be a barrier to protect you from UV radiation, infection, wind, everything, to protect you from your environment. Underneath the epidermis, you have your dermis, which is your living cells. Those are the cells where really all the action of the skin is going on. In between those 2 layers is a layer of melanocytes, which are the cells that create pigment, and those will be important later on, so hang on to that term. And then underneath all of that is the subcutaneous tissue, the collagen. If you think about the skin as if it were a bed, the epidermis would be the sheets on top, the dermis would be your mattress, and then the subcutaneous tissue would really be the bed frame, the structure that gives support and strength. So I'm going to show you a couple of pictures to let you have a better idea of exactly what we're talking about, because this stuff gets complicated without pictures. Okay, so over here we've got 2 pictures. On this side we have healthy skin. On this side we have some photo-damaged aged skin. And I'm going to describe the changes that are happening in here as we age, how they affect the skin, what they make the skin look like, and then the last thing we'll talk about is how you can correct them, because the good news is that all of these things are correctable, which is fantastic. It gets depressing if you don't know that ahead of time. So, in young skin and in healthy skin, the epidermis, these cells up on top, are relatively thin. Okay, there's not a lot of them that build up in healthy skin. And then when you come down here into the dermis, these cells are big, round, robust, full of water, good, robust, healthy layer. And when you look at the melanocytes, this would be a melanocyte. They're the pigment cells again. These are the ones that create color in the skin. The melanocytes are very evenly spread out and very well controlled. They're not pumping out a whole lot of pigment. So as we start to age, or as we start to get photo damage, UV damage to our skin, what happens is the epidermis starts to get thicker. It just doesn't shed off as quickly. And the dermis, if you can see, I'm not sure how well you can see it in this video, but the dermal cells start to get smaller, they have less water in them, and they start to atrophy. The third thing that goes on is the melanocytes start to proliferate. They start to create more pigment in response to the photo damage. And then the last change that happens is your collagen starts to break down. We all sort of know that the collagen breaks down as we age. Now each one of these changes has a specific impact on our skin. We'll talk about the epidermis getting thicker first. So in healthy skin, the epidermis is nice and thin, the dermis is nice and thick, and has a lot of water in it. That matters for the following reason. This is thin enough that it's actually translucent, light can pass through it. The light will hit those dermal cells and reflect back off of them, the same way as it would reflect off a pond or a stream or anything else that has water in it. So when you talk about young skin, you talk about skin being luminous. You say, oh my goodness, you've got that glow of youth. What people are actually talking about when they say that is how much light gets in and how much light reflects back out to the viewer's eye. Now you can see, as skin starts to get photo damaged, the epidermis gets thicker, the dermis is thinner, the cells have less water, they're less healthy, so less light gets in and less light gets back out. So the skin starts to appear dull and coarse. And I'll show you a picture of actual skin to give you an idea of what that looks like. So skin that's been photo damaged, a little coarse, a little dull, a little rough, doesn't have any reflective ability, doesn't glow. And then you come over here, and this is after treatment with a non-ablative resurfacing laser, and we'll talk more about lasers in another video. You can see the skin is more clear, it's more luminous. A lot of that sort of coarseness and dullness and those enlarged pores have been treated. So this is what happens when the epidermis starts to get thicker and the dermis starts to atrophy and degrade. Now, the other change, of course, is that the melanocytes, the pigment, as you expose your skin to more and more UV radiation over time, these cells start to get more and more active and they create sunspots. And we, of course, all of us know exactly what those look like. They look like this. You start to get spots of darker pigment across your skin. Those can also be treated with lasers. This is with an IPL laser, which gives a very, very nice result. And again, we'll talk more about lasers in, specifically in another segment. The third effect that's happening in the skin, which is the loss of collagen, leads to those fine lines and those crepe-papery wrinkles that happen all over the skin. And that is best illustrated, I think, over here. You can see in this individual's skin these fine lines that occur all across the face. These lines up here, these deeper furrows, those are dynamic wrinkles, which are treated with Botox. These creases around the mouth, that's loss in hollowing underneath the eyes, that's loss of volume treated with filler. But all these little fine lines and wrinkles, those are loss of collagen in the deep tissues of the skin caused by intrinsic skin aging, and those are treated also with resurfacing lasers. And we'll talk more about lasers in some of our other videos. So just to briefly recap, because I know that's a lot of information all at once. Intrinsic skin aging affects all of the layers of the skin. It makes the epidermis get thicker and more coarse. It makes the melanocytes, which are the pigment cells, start to replicate and proliferate so that you get age spots and sunspots. It makes the dermis start to get smaller and weaker and atrophic so that your skin is able to reflect less light back out, so it glows less, so it starts to appear coarse and dull. And then the lowest layer of the skin starts to lose collagen, so you get those fine, crepe-papery little wrinkles that spread out all the way across the face. That's all the bad news. The good news is all of those things are correctable. Skin is an incredibly rejuvenative organ. With appropriate medical grade skincare and with laser treatments, all of those things are correctable and preventable. And if you have any questions about that or want to talk to us more, you can come in anytime. Consults with me are always complimentary. You can just give us a call. And this ends our segment 3 of the aging process.